Welcome to the O'Connor Elder Law Channel. I'm your host, Melissa O'Connor. I'm a Florida-based elder law attorney who does estate planning, focusing on long-term care needs, commonly referred to as Medicaid planning, and I do probate, and I do it well. Today I wanted to talk to you about different types of trusts, revocable and irrevocable, and when a trust might be for you, because they're not always for everybody, but they are for many people. But before I do, I wanted to invite you to schedule a free strategy session with me at eldermeeting.com. So many times people come to me and they want a will update or they want a simple will. And then when we start talking about their goals for their will, we realize that it's not best served by a will, but rather they would be better served by a trust. And depending on their medical conditions or their family history, they might even benefit from an irrevocable trust. And I wanted to share with you the differences so that way maybe you can pinpoint and spot whether or not you might be a person who would benefit from a trust, and if so, what kind. So wills work best for people who, one, don't care about probate, right? They understand that after they pass, that a will requires probate, meaning that their family will submit the will to the court and that the assets will be gathered, any creditors will be paid, and then the funds would be dispersed to their named beneficiaries. And many times these people the will is a catch-all, document, and they might avoid probate altogether by just utilizing death beneficiaries, right? So they might only hold their money in brokerage type accounts or IRAs or 401ks, bank accounts, right? And these accounts allow them to list death beneficiaries. They have no concerns about their death beneficiaries inheriting their money outright, so they can just put their name on it. And these folks would be able to inherit their money outright without probate, and maybe you have little to no other types of assets that would otherwise require a probate. So your will is just a catch-all for any lingering things that might be there. But otherwise it's mostly kind of disregarded, honestly, because they have death beneficiaries on all of their assets, and that's how their legacy passes. The concerns come in whether if you have, minors, right, that would be inheriting, that would be a problem. You'd want to make sure you had a trust set up for them because they can't be inheriting that kind of money outright without provisions in place, right? So it would trigger a guardianship type of, for a minor if you didn't have a trust set up for them. The other concerns, if you had somebody that you wanted to inherit your money, but you wanted it dialed out to them over time, right? Because you think that they're not fiscally responsible, or you know that they have creditor issues, or you know that they might have addiction type concerns or issues. Those people, if they're in your life, you wouldn't want to just add their name to your retirement account to inherit as a death beneficiary outright, because they'll be getting their money straight to them upon your passing, and those provisions for the money to be held in trust won't apply. So even if you had a will that indicated that, if you had them listed directly as your death beneficiary on your major accounts, your will wouldn't come into play and those terms wouldn't come into play. You would be better served at that juncture to have a trust set up. So a revocable living trust would be appropriate for people who don't want their funds or their inheritance to go outright to their beneficiaries. They want to have some sort of terms about it that it'd be dialed out over time, or some sort of protections there. Also, a revocable living trust would be a good thing to have if you thought that you wanted to build in any sort of special needs type provisions, because you know that one of your relatives has medical conditions that would need that types of trust. Those can be built in to a revocable living trust. If you realized that you have a medical diagnosis that is going to result in you needing long-term care in the next 5 years or 5 years out, or if you know that you have a family history where of dementia, Parkinson's, those sorts of diseases where you know that long-term care is most likely in your future, and you know that that's not going to be, you're not in a crisis situation where you already have the need and you could use it within this year or next year. No, I'm talking about pre-planning. You know that this is something that's probably coming down the line for you. If you're able to pre-plan, and you know this in advance and you're willing to have this conversation, you might want to consider an irrevocable trust to be set up. Those sorts of trusts are ones that you can actually protect your assets. You won't be in charge of your money anymore. There will be a third-party trustee. They're supposed to manage it and be a fiduciary for you, right? But the monies that you put into that trust will no longer be countable assets for purposes of Medicaid in the future, so you'd be able to qualify for those sorts of government assistance long-term care benefits that you otherwise would not be financially qualified for, and they would require you to spend your money in cash pay for those benefits. By putting them in an irrevocable trust in advance, 5 years prior to needing benefits, that makes those funds not countable when it comes time when the government's counting assets for determination of your benefits. It's considered unavailable to you, and now you're able to qualify for long-term care benefits, and those funds that you sheltered and protected could be funds that your healthy spouse lives off of, right? So that way their retirement is not completely defunded to pay for your care, right? And they're able to safely age in place with the level of lifestyle and comfort that you had planned for all your working lives. So those are different types of estate planning mechanisms: wills, revocable living trusts, and irrevocable trusts. And depending on your legacy goals and your needs, would depend on what type of tool is appropriate for you. If this information has been helpful, I ask that you like and share with others. And as always, you can schedule a strategy session with me for free at eldermeeting.com. Thanks for joining me.